There's a fundamental principle operating in the universe that most people don't understand when they're going through a breakup. It's called the vacuum law, and it's the reason why chasing your ex almost never works, while pulling away often brings them running back. This isn't about manipulation or playing games. This is about understanding a psychological and energetic reality that governs human attraction and desire. When someone breaks up with you, your first instinct is to fight for the relationship. You want to convince them they're making a mistake. You want to remind them of all the good times. You want to show them how much you care. And every single one of those instincts, while completely natural and understandable, works directly against you. Here's why. Human beings are wired to pursue what moves away from them and to take for granted what remains constant. This isn't a character flaw. It's evolutionary psychology. Our ancestors survived by paying attention to movement, to change, to things that disappeared from their environment. Stillness meant safety. Movement meant either opportunity or threat, and both required attention. When you remain present and available after a breakup, you become stillness. You become the known quantity. Your ex's brain categorizes you as safe, as handled, as resolved. There's no urgency to think about you because you're not going anywhere. You've made yourself a constant in their post-breakup equation, but when you pull away, when you create absence, you trigger something primal in their psychology. You become movement. You become the thing that's changing, that's disappearing from their environment. And suddenly, their brain has to pay attention. This is the beginning of the vacuum law in action. The vacuum law states that nature abhors a vacuum. When you remove your presence, your attention, your emotional energy from someone's life, you create empty space, and that empty space demands to be filled. Think about it this way. Before the breakup, you occupied a significant portion of your ex's daily reality. You were in their thoughts, their routines, their plans, their conversations. You were a presence that filled space in their psychological and emotional landscape. When the breakup happens, your ex expects that you'll try to maintain that presence. They expect texts, calls, pleas, arguments, emotional displays. They've braced themselves for your continued presence, perhaps in a more desperate or needy form. But when you don't do any of that, when you simply withdraw, you create a vacuum where your presence used to be. And here's the critical part. Your ex cannot help but notice that vacuum. They cannot help but feel it. At first, they might feel relief. They got what they wanted without the guilt and difficulty of dealing with your pain. But relief is a temporary emotion. It passes quickly. And what comes after relief is awareness. Awareness of the silence. Awareness of the absence. Awareness of the empty space where you used to be. When you properly implement the vacuum law by withdrawing your presence, your ex will typically move through 4 distinct psychological phases. Understanding these phases helps you recognize what's happening and, more importantly, helps you maintain your withdrawal instead of breaking it prematurely. The first phase is relief. Your ex feels like they dodged a bullet. The breakup happened, and you didn't make it harder than it needed to be. They can breathe. They can move forward. They can enjoy their freedom without the weight of your emotional reaction. This phase typically lasts anywhere from a few days to 2 weeks, depending on how the breakup went and how you handled it. During this relief phase, you might see your ex posting on social media, going out with friends, appearing happy and unburdened. This is painful to witness, but it's also predictable and temporary. They're experiencing the fantasy of the breakup, not the reality. The reality hasn't set in yet because the vacuum hasn't made itself felt. The second phase is curiosity. This is when the vacuum begins to make itself known. Your ex starts to notice that they haven't heard from you at all. No texts, no calls, no accidental run-ins that seem a little too convenient. No mutual friends reporting back about how you're doing or how much you miss them. This creates a question mark in their mind. Why aren't you reaching out? Why aren't you fighting for them? Why does it seem like you're actually okay? Or worse, like you might be moving on. Remember, your ex broke up with you from a position of perceived superiority. They were the one who decided the relationship wasn't good enough. They were the one who chose to leave. In their mind, consciously or unconsciously. This means they had more options, more value, more power in the dynamic. So when you don't chase, you contradict that narrative. You create cognitive dissonance, and cognitive dissonance is psychologically uncomfortable. The mind wants to resolve it. The third phase is concern. The curiosity has grown into something more urgent. The vacuum has expanded. Your ex is now actively thinking about you, wondering about you, maybe even checking up on you through social media or mutual friends. They're starting to ask themselves questions they didn't expect to ask. What if you really are moving on? What if you've met someone else? What if you've decided they weren't worth fighting for? What if breaking up with you was actually a mistake? These questions create anxiety, and anxiety creates a need for resolution. Your ex wants to know where they stand with you. They want to know if you're still an option. They want to fill the vacuum with information, with contact, with some kind of confirmation that you still care. This is the phase where many exes will reach out. It might be something casual, a random text, a comment on social media, a question that doesn't really need to be asked. They're testing the waters. They're trying to see if you're still there, still available, still interested. The fourth phase is action. If the vacuum has been maintained, if you haven't broken your silence and filled the empty space with your neediness or availability, your ex reaches a breaking point. The discomfort of not knowing, the anxiety of potentially losing you, the realization that you might actually be gone becomes too much. This is when they take real action. This is when they reach out with intention. This is when they want to see you, talk to you, reconnect with you. This is when the vacuum law has done its work. Now, let's talk about why chasing your ex, staying in contact, trying to maintain the connection, completely destroys the vacuum law before it can work. When you chase, you fill the vacuum yourself. You answer the questions before they can be asked. You provide the reassurance before it's needed. You confirm that, yes, you're still there, still available, still waiting for them. And when your ex knows all of this, there's no vacuum. There's no empty space. There's no mystery. There's no urgency. Think of it like this. If you knew with absolute certainty that a particular restaurant would always be open, always have a table available for you, always serve you exactly what you wanted, would you feel any urgency to go there? Would you think about it constantly? Would you worry about losing access to it? Of course not. You'd take it for granted. You might even start to devalue it because it's so readily available. That's what you become when you chase. You become the restaurant that's always open, and your ex takes you for granted. But when you pull away, when you create scarcity, when you make yourself unavailable, you become the exclusive restaurant with a waiting list. Suddenly, your ex wonders if they can still get a table. Suddenly, they remember why they liked eating there in the first place. Suddenly, they want what they can't easily have. This isn't manipulation. This is human psychology. We value what is scarce. We pursue what retreats. We take for granted what is always available. There's another layer to the vacuum law that goes beyond psychology into the realm of energy and attachment. When you're in a relationship with someone, you create energetic bonds. You become accustomed to their energy in your field. You become attuned to their presence. When the relationship ends, those energetic bonds don't immediately dissolve. They're still there, still active, still connecting you to your ex on a subtle level. When you chase, when you continue to direct your energy toward your ex, you keep those bonds alive and active from your side. You're still feeding the connection. You're still maintaining the energetic present. But here's what most people don't realize. When you do this, you're actually making it easier for your ex to disconnect from you. You're doing the energetic work of maintaining the bond while they get to enjoy the freedom of the breakup. They can feel you there in the background, holding the connection so they don't have to. When you withdraw, when you pull your energy back, when you stop feeding those bonds from your side, something shifts. Your ex starts to feel the absence on an energetic level. They start to feel the disconnection. And because they're not used to it, because they've become accustomed to your energy in their field, it feels wrong. It feels like something is missing. This creates an unconscious pull to reconnect. Your ex might not even understand why they're thinking about you so much. They might not be able to articulate why they suddenly want to reach out, but the energetic vacuum is pulling at them, creating a need to restore the connection. One of the most common mistakes people make when they understand the vacuum law is that they break their silence too soon. They see their ex starting to show signs of curiosity or concern, and they immediately reach out, thinking this is their chance. But by doing this, they collapse the vacuum before it's done its full work. They relieve the pressure before it's built to the point where their ex is truly ready to reconsider the relationship. Think of the vacuum like a pressure system. It builds gradually. The longer the absence, the stronger the vacuum, the more powerful the pull. If you release that pressure prematurely, you lose all the momentum you've built. Your ex might respond positively to your initial contact, but because the vacuum wasn't fully developed, because they haven't truly felt the weight of losing you, they're not in the psychological space where they're ready to make a real change or commitment. You end up back in the same dynamic that led to the breakup. You're available, they're comfortable, and nothing has fundamentally shifted. The vacuum law requires patience. It requires you to sit with the discomfort of not knowing. It requires you to trust the process even when you can't see immediate results. Pulling away doesn't mean being cruel or vindictive. It doesn't mean blocking your ex on everything or making dramatic public statements about moving on. Those actions actually work against you because they signal that you're still emotionally reactive, still affected, still engaged with the breakup. True pulling away is quiet. It's dignified. It's a simple, clean withdrawal of your presence and attention. If your ex reaches out with something casual, you don't respond immediately. You don't respond with paragraphs. You don't try to turn it into a conversation. You respond briefly, politely, and then you return to your silence. If you see your ex in person, you're cordial but not warm. You're polite but not available. You don't avoid them dramatically, but you also don't linger or try to create connection. On social media, you don't post things designed to make your ex jealous or to show them what they're missing. You simply live your life and share it authentically. You don't hide, but you also don't perform. The key is that your energy is genuinely redirected. You're not pulling away as a strategy while secretly obsessing over your ex. You're actually investing in yourself, your life, your growth, your healing. The vacuum works best when it's real, when you're genuinely creating space, not just physically, but emotionally and mentally. There's a reason this is called the vacuum law and not just the vacuum effect. It's because there's a universal principle at play here that goes beyond individual psychology. The universe operates on balance. Energy flows where attention goes. When you're chasing, you're creating an imbalance. You're giving more than you're receiving. You're pursuing someone who's retreating. The universe doesn't support this imbalance long term. But when you pull away, when you withdraw your energy, you restore balance. You stop the one-sided flow. And nature, the universe, reality itself, abhors imbalance. It will work to restore equilibrium. This means that when you create a vacuum, the universe will conspire to fill it. Your ex will start to think about you more. Circumstances will arise that remind them of you. They'll hear songs that make them remember. They'll have experiences that make them wish you were there. This isn't magical thinking. This is about how energy and attention work on a fundamental level. When you stop pushing, when you create space, when you allow the natural flow to reassert itself, things shift. Your ex might not even realize why they're suddenly thinking about you so much. They might not connect it to your absence, but the vacuum is doing its work, pulling at them, creating the conditions for them to reconsider. If you maintain the vacuum long enough, if you genuinely pull away and redirect your energy, there's a high probability your ex will reach out, not with casual breadcrumbs, but with real intention. They might say they've been thinking about you. They might ask how you've been. They might suggest meeting up. They might even admit they made a mistake. This is the vacuum completing its cycle. The empty space became too uncomfortable. The absence became too loud. The loss became too real. But here's the critical part. When this happens, you cannot immediately fill the vacuum with your old energy. You cannot rush back into the relationship as if nothing happened. You cannot abandon the self-respect and boundaries you've built during your time away. The vacuum brought them back, but what keeps them is the new dynamic you've created. You're no longer the person who's always available. You're no longer the sure thing. You've become someone who has options, who has standards, who has a life that doesn't revolve around them. This is attractive. This is what makes them want to stay. This is what makes them value you in a way they didn't before. The vacuum law works not because it's a trick or a manipulation, but because it's based on fundamental truths about human psychology, energy, and attraction. People value what they might lose. People pursue what retreats. People take for granted what is always available. When you pull away after a breakup, you're not playing a game. You're restoring your dignity. You're reclaiming your power. You're investing in yourself instead of someone who chose to leave. And in doing so, you create the exact conditions that make your ex reconsider their decision. The vacuum will pull at them. The absence will haunt them. The space where you used to be will feel empty in a way they didn't expect. And if they're meant to come back, if the relationship has real potential, the vacuum law will bring them to your door. But even if it doesn't, even if your ex never returns, you'll have done the most important thing. You'll have chosen yourself. You'll have refused to chase someone who didn't choose you. You'll have created space for something better to enter your life. That's the real power of the vacuum law. It either brings back what's meant for you, or it clears the way for what's next. Either way, you win.